Will you all please join me in Gassho and repeat the Nembutsu with me? Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namandats, 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 Namandats. Good morning, everyone. It's so interesting. When I asked, will you please join me in Gassho, I heard a clap. How many of you have been to a Shinto shrine before? The Shinto jinja, the Japanese word is jinja. So the usual ritual when you go to a jinja is you throw in some money, right? You make an offering, like you make an offering here. Then you ring the bell, right? You ring the bell. And then you do 2 claps, okay? And then you do the bow and you hold your hands up here, right? Now, what's interesting is, why do you do this? This is because in Japanese culture and in Japanese folklore or understanding of the gods are asleep in the shrine. Okay, they're asleep. They're asleep. So you kind of get their attention by first making an offering. And when you make the offering, you throw it into the bowl, right? And it makes this clunk noise. Then you ring the bell, and then it makes the jingling noise. And finally, you do 2 claps, and that wakes up the gods. And that signifies, the 2 claps signify heaven and earth, okay? Now, why don't we do that here at our temple or at Buddhist temples? When we say put your hands together in Gassho, we just put our hands together in Gassho and bow. Why is this? Because when we talk about the Buddha, Amida Buddha, Shakyamuni Buddha, the Buddha is already awake. So when we talk about the Buddha, when we talk about how the word Buddha, right, it doesn't mean God, it doesn't mean big spiritual being who has the power to grant wishes. The Buddha simply means one who is already awakened to the truth. So the reason why we don't clap our hands when we come to a temple, right, is because the Buddha is already awake. There is no need to wake up the Buddha. The Buddha is here with us now. The Buddha is ever present, and the Buddha continues to work the Dharma, continues to talk about the working of the Dharma here and now. This isn't to say that I'm not trying to disparage or say the clapping is interesting, but I find it interesting because someone does clap. And sometimes when Japanese people I've seen too come into the temple and offer things before, like at Obon and stuff, they do clap in front of Amida Buddha. So I go, oh, that's interesting. But the Buddha is already awake. And the reason why I bring up Shakyamuni Buddha is because we are almost at the end of February. And so you all remember, for 2 months, I talked heavily about Shakyamuni Buddha, Prince Siddhartha, and then, of course, Bodhisattva Dharmakara, Amida Buddha. This is because I am structuring my Dharma talks in 2-month patterns, okay? So for the first 2 months, I talked about the Buddha. The next 2 months, I will talk about the Dharma. And the last 2 months, I will talk about very good, the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. And altogether, what do those 3 make? The 3 treasures. Very good. Yes. So on my last talk about the Buddha in this Dharma talk, I would like to just again go over how important our teachers are in our lives. If there were no teachers in our lives, we could never progress. We could never go further in life. For all of us, it is important to show a deep sense of gratitude to our teachers, even going back to Shakyamuni. When we think about it, our onaijin, our shrine, is in itself a form or an expression of gratitude. When we put Amida Buddha in the center, we are not saying, please, Amida Buddha, give me blessings, give me the winning lottery ticket numbers for next month. We're not saying this. We are saying thank you. Thank you to the Buddha. Thank you to Amida Buddha for creating the Pure Land to which we will all eventually go. Thank you to Master Shinran for bringing us such a wonderful teaching. Thank you to Master Renyo for helping us ensure that Honganji, or our head temple, still continues to this day. Thank you. So maybe I'll talk about him at some point, but Prince Shotoku, who really helped to bring Buddhism more into Japanese life and in society. Thank you to the 7 masters who are depicted on the scroll for helping to clarify the Jodo Shinshu teachings. When you look at our shrine, it is not a form of petitionary prayer. Our shrine is a form of deep expression of gratitude. This is because teachers and the great teacher Shakyamuni Buddha, the great Amida Buddha, are so important and reminds all of us that we also must always be students. We must recognize that there is no such thing as the top or as something that, well, we've learned enough, we'll never need to learn more. And this is especially true with me as well. We must always be students, be willing to learn more. Now, for those of you in the congregation, and including myself, how many of you have done a martial art before, like judo, karate, those kinds of things? Yeah, I don't know why, Dave. Why didn't you raise your hand? So, David is a very impressive kendo teacher. So one of the myths, let's talk about the myths. One of the myths of martial arts, right, is that when you get your black belt, you are a master. How many of you think this myth, right? Or I've heard this myth before. When you get your black belt, that means you're at the top. Right, exactly, yes. But guess what? When you receive a black belt in martial arts, that does not mean that you are a master. That does not mean that you have mastered all the techniques. When you receive a black belt, it means that you have been formally accepted as a student of that dojo. It means that your learning has truly just begun. And this is important for me too, especially. When I received Tokudo, right? Tokudo is the name of the first level of ordination when you become a priest. I had to shave my head, right? But finally I got to put robes on. I got to wear a special sash. I got to wear, I got to carry special onenju, right? When this happens, it is so easy for all of us as priests to kind of go on a little ego trip, go, haha, I am now a priest, I can wear the robes. But the most important thing that I have to remember, especially going back to Tokudo, is that when I was officially ordained, that means that my true learning of Jodo Shinshu Buddhism had just begun. All of us, when we come in here every weekend, even including for myself, we are just continuing to learn. We are just starting to learn. Black belts, robes, graduation hats, all of these things are wonderful accomplishments. But if you're not careful, it can lead to a bad ego. I graduated, therefore I get to do this. I passed my black belt exam, therefore I get to do this. I wear robes, therefore I get to stand up here and lecture at you. I guess that's kind of what I'm doing, but I hope that's not what I come across as. We must always endeavor to be humble and be willing to learn more. Master Shinran always encourages us to deeply listen to the Nembutsu teachings. Now, another important part about Master Shinran's journey, right, is that he spent 20 years on Mount Hiei to learn the deep teachings of Buddhism. How many of you in the audience or in the congregation here are 20 years old? Raise your hand. 20, yeah, okay. So some of you are either in your 20s, others are past your 20s, others are before your 20s. So in that regard, Shinran has trained a really long time. And even after training 20 years, can you imagine training 20 years heavily on Mount Hiei? He still realized, I am just a beginner. I am just at the beginning. I am no closer to achieving enlightenment than when I started. And the same thing is true with Shakyamuni Buddha. For many years, Prince Siddhartha, before he became the Buddha, trained really, really hard, a lot, did ascetic practices, only ate 1 grain of rice per day. And yet at the end of it, he said, I'm still not close to attaining enlightenment. Right? A lot of us can think things like, oh, I only ate 1 grain of rice per day, or I did all of these practices, therefore I am far in advance. No, even after all this training, Master Shinran, Prince Siddhartha said, I'm still not there yet. I still am not there yet. Now, more importantly, when Shakyamuni Buddha did achieve enlightenment under the Bodhi tree, he said, I cannot keep this teaching to myself. I cannot be selfish about what I have learned. I must share this knowledge with everyone. I must help spread these teachings so people will no longer suffer. Master Shinran was heavily also indebted to his teacher, Master Honen, realizing Master Honen has taught me an important and amazing lesson. I must help to spread this teaching and this message of Nembutsu to everywhere and anyone who will listen in Japan. So again, when you graduate, when you receive your teaching license, or when you actually get a promotion to your job, right? That's not necessarily to hoard to yourself and to say, I am the greatest now, I am the best, right? It is actually in your best interest and in the best interest for everyone to help teach and to help guide and to help lead. This is why teachers are so important. The Buddha, Shakyamuni Buddha, represents the great teacher. Shakyamuni Buddha taught so many teachings to everyone around. We, as regular, ordinary human beings, and this is including myself, will achieve many wonderful things in life. Many of us, we have graduated. Many of us, we have gotten many promotions. Some of us have even been successful enough to retire. But even with all of that, we must still endeavor to continue learning. We must continue to help with the learning process as well, help to share these teachings with everyone. And in this way, we are honoring Prince Siddhartha's wish that these teachings continue to be passed on. We are honoring Master Shinran's wish that these teachings continue to be passed on. The Nembutsu teaching is timeless because we continue to say, Namo Amida Butsu. So I would like to once again thank all of you for attending today's service. This is the last Dharma talk, not the last, but this is the last Dharma talk that I will be doing about the first treasure, the Buddha, the great teacher. Next month, I will be talking about the Dharma, or the teachings, on many levels, practical, in our lives, and how we treat the teachings as well. So with this being said, I encourage all of you, once again, especially if you are students at a college, if you are students at your high school, if you are students at your elementary school, really take the time to appreciate your teachers. Say thank you. They are taking time out of their busy schedule to impart priceless lessons to you all. Say thank you to your teachers. When you go to your Dharma school class today, say thank you to the people teaching you. Realize you are receiving a gift. I would like to thank you all for joining me today. In closing, will you please join me in Gassho? Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Namo. Will you all please join me in Gassho? Namo. As our teacher, Genku, appeared in the world and spread the one vehicle of the universal vow throughout the entire country of Japan, favorable conditions for the Pure Land teaching emerged. Our teacher, Genku, appeared through the power of the light of wisdom, and revealing the true Pure Land way, he taught the selected primal vow. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Good morning again, everyone. Today's Gosandai, or quote that I picked, comes from Master Shinran's Hymns of the Pure Land Masters, or the Koso Wasan. And these two talked about Genku, who is also known as Honen Shonin. Honen Shonin. So Master Genku is depicted on the Seven Master Scroll, and Shinran probably favors him the most because he was the one he was the teacher he directly learned from. So you can see in his Wasan how grateful he is to Master Genku. In fact, another Wasan I'll read says, through countless kalpas and innumerable lives, we did not know the strong cause of liberation. Were it not for our teacher Genku, or Honen, this present life also would pass in vain. So he's really saying some strong words in terms of if it were not for Master Genku or Master Honen, how we would not have the Pure Land teaching that would cause us birth in the Pure Land. It's a very powerful statement, but we can clearly see just how grateful and devoted Master Shinran was to Master Honen. You know, this brings us to the name of our sect in itself, right? Jodo Shinshu, Jodo Shinshu. The Shin, there's also Jodo Shu, I should say, Jodo Shu. There's Jodo Shu, regular Jodo Shu in Japan. There's a couple of temples here in the United States that are of the Jodo Shu sect, but most Pure Land temples in the United States currently still are of the Jodo Shinshu sect, right? So when that character Shin, right, actually is depicted up here. So Ken, Shin, right? The two kanji characters up there, Ken, Shin. The second one is Shin. That's the Shin that we use in Jodo Shinshu, okay? And what does that mean? It means truthful or true or real. Now, when this should be understood that when we're saying Jodo Shinshu, right, we're not saying our way of believing Jodo Shinshu is correct and other sects of believing Jodo Shinshu are wrong. That's actually not what we're saying at all. When we say Jodo Shinshu, we are basically distinguishing ourselves as the followers of Master Shinran, but also clarifying that what Jodo Shinshu, when we say Shinshu, is Master Shinran stated that Honen's understanding of the Pure Land way is true and real. Okay, so there's two things happening there. There's a very much like something that kind of distinguishes us as, oh, we are the followers of Master Shinran. But at the same time, Master Shinran is stating, when I say Shinshu, I'm saying that Honen saying, what Honen is saying is true, okay? So please don't confuse this when we talk about Jodo Shinshu. When we say Shinshu, we're not saying, oh, my way of understanding Pure Land is better than yours. It could be easy to do that, but I highly encourage you not to do so. The Master Honen, when talked about the true cause of birth in the Pure Land, and that is our Shinji, that is our faith, that is our everlasting trust of the teachings of Amida Buddha. And this is something that Master Shinran heavily grasped onto. In my previous Dharma talk, I talked about how Master Shinran studied very diligently for 20 years on Mount Hiei. And one of Eshini's letters to her daughter, and this is, Eshini was the wife of Master Shinran, and to her daughter Kakushini, who are depicted in the pictures over there to your left, she talked about how Master Shinran was called a doso, or a hall priest. Okay, now when you're a doso or a hall priest, you have to circumambulate around a statue of Amida Buddha, constantly reciting Namu Amida Butsu in this very slow and melodic way. You are allowed to rest, but technically speaking, you are not allowed to sleep. And you are not really allowed to stop all that much. You can eat, but you can't stop and lay down and fall asleep. And then the next thing, right, is that you have to do this nonstop for 90 days. You have to do this nonstop for 90 days. And according to legend, Shinran did this. But then at the end of that, after 20 years of doing these various practices, Master Shinran said, I'm still not getting it. I'm doing all of these powerful practices, these things that are really pushing my body to the brink, and I'm still not understanding. And when he found Master Honen said to him, you don't need to do all of those things. The Nembutsu itself is the way to enlightenment. Not all the practices that you do, not the circumambulating around Amida Buddha. Now, those are nice things to do, and they give us some type of clarity and direction. And in fact, today in our school of Jodo Shinshu, we have rituals where we circumambulate around Amida Buddha. Hopefully, we'll be able to showcase some of those at some point. But the Nembutsu itself is the cause for birth in the Pure Land. This was the teaching that caused Master Shinran to turn the leaf over and follow the teachings of Master Honen. It is not our diligent practice. There's actually an app now, or it's not the hard and diligent practice that we always do. There is actually an app apparently in Taiwan, I think in China as well, that will count and tally how many times you say Nyanpo or Nembutsu every day. Namo Amida Butsu. Legend has it that Honen would say Nembutsu 10,000 times a day. But again, right, the goal is not the amount of times you say it, but the fact that you're saying it and you are entrusting to it. Master Shinran realized his limitations as a human being. He was very much aware of his shortcomings as an unenlightened person. And when he found Master Honen said, this is all right. This is why Amida Buddha exists in the first place, your imperfect self. And it is not that you have to change and that you have to become this saint, right? And in fact, actually, Shinran Shonin literally can be translated as saint. He would probably be very angry with us if he heard us calling him that. But he says, but Honen said, you don't have to become this, this great person who always does good things 100% of the time. But it is your trust in the Nembutsu teaching that is the cause for birth. Once Master Shinran heard this, what could he do but place his hands together in Gasho and say, I take refuge in Amida Buddha. Now, remember, Amida Buddha was not new to Master Shinran when he started training on Mount Tiantai, Mount Enryakuji, okay, Mount Hiei. He had encountered Amida Buddha before, but never in the context of that of Master Honen. And it's because of Master Honen that Shinran started the great movement of Jodo Shinshu to this day. This punctuates and highlights the point that we must entrust ourselves to good teachers. We all have wonderful teachers in our lives. There are people who we rely on constantly to tell us or to guide us in our time of need. Whether that be the teachings of Shakyamuni, whether that be your parents, whether that even be the teacher that you're still in contact with. We always must rely on the teachings of a great teacher. There is a trust there, I think, that is built. If you're a good teacher and you maintain that trust, then I believe we as people will continue to traverse this life that we call samsara in the most authentic way that we can. This was what Master Genku was, or Master Honen was, to our founder, Shinran Shonin. You will hear Shinran Shonin talk about Master Genku almost in mythological ways. Shinran would even go as far as to sort of claim that Honen was Amida Buddha incarnate in this world. Now, how literally you choose to take that is up to you. But the important thing is the appreciation and the love Shinran showed towards his teacher. Because it was Honen's teaching that clarified Shinran's understanding of the primal vow, of Amida Buddha's wisdom and compassion. Amida Buddha accepts us just as we are, who we are, and doesn't give any particular type of judgment to our past. No matter what, no matter what grievances we might have committed in the past, no matter how charitable we are, Amida Buddha, the true Buddha of infinite light and life, sees us for who we are, an unenlightened being who must require help in order to reach the Pure Land. This is why Master Shinran was so grateful to Master Honen. This was explained to him, that it wasn't the practice, right, our self-doing practices that helped us to get to the Pure Land. It was just our entrustment to Amida Buddha's wisdom and compassion. We bring these hymns and these wasan and these passages to us from time to time. And it is because it is very important for us to check ourselves, to look in a mirror, figuratively speaking, or literally if necessary, and really ask ourselves, do we entrust ourselves to the working of other power? Whether we trust or not, whether we are filled with self-power or doubt, Amida Buddha's wisdom and compassion still continues to work for us. We'll eventually hopefully get it someday. I hope I will too. But in this regard, I am so grateful that these teachings from Master Shinran have come to us. I am so grateful that Master Honen existed. And Shinran brings up a point. Were it not for our teacher Genku, this present life also would pass in vain. Now, I won't go as far as to say that, oh gosh, if Master Genku didn't exist, we'd all be doomed. But I would ask ourselves, if this teacher did not exist, would we even be here? If this teacher did not come to this world, would we even be here? And the more scary question for me, I would say, is if this teacher didn't exist, or if this teaching didn't exist, or if the temples or Jodo Shinshu didn't exist, would I even be born? I think this is an important question, and sometimes it causes me to go, ooh, and kind of fear. But thanks to Shinran Shonin, I am here. Thanks to Master Honen, I am here. Going all the way back to Master Shakyamuni Buddha, I am here. So with that in mind, I would like to thank you all for attending our Sunday service. It's going to be cold for the next few days, so please do your best to bundle up, and if you can, stay indoors and try not to go outside when it's going to snow and rain. Of course, looking at it is beautiful. Will you all please join me in Gassho? As our teacher Genku appeared in the world and spread the one vehicle of the universal vow throughout the entire country of Japan, favorable conditions for the Pure Land teaching emerged. Our teacher Genku appeared through the power of the light of wisdom, and revealing the true Pure Land way, he taught the selected primal vow. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namandavs, namandavs, namandavs.